Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving headfirst into the incredibly high-stakes world of antiarrhythmic drugs. These are the medications that are literally designed to tame a chaotic heartbeat and get our most vital organ beating in time again.
Think of your heart as this amazing, perfectly timed orchestra. But what happens when the conductor just loses control? Some instruments start playing way too fast, others drag way behind, and that beautiful symphony just turns into a jumbled, chaotic mess. Well, that's pretty much what an arrhythmia is. So the big question is, how do you get that orchestra back in sync? That's exactly what we're going to figure out today.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about what it means when your heart skips a beat. Then, we'll listen in on the heart's electrical symphony. After that, we'll meet the drugs that try to restore the rhythm, zoom in on the sodium channel blockers, and check out the other key players. Finally, we'll get into the really delicate balance of it all.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, Understanding Arrhythmia. You know how we sometimes say our heart skips a beat when we get excited or nervous? Well, a true arrhythmia is a whole different ballgame. It's a much more serious electrical problem.
So, what are we really talking about? At its core, an arrhythmia is any disturbance in the heart's normal rhythm. This could mean it's beating way too fast, that's called tachyarrhythmia, or it could be beating too slow, which we call bradyarrhythmia. Basically, it's any little deviation from that steady, reliable beat we all depend on.
Now, to really get how these drugs work, we have to look under the hood. We need to understand the heart's sheet music. That's the electrical signal that tells every single heart cell exactly when to contract. And that signal has a name, the cardiac action potential.
Okay, I know this looks a little complicated, but don't worry. This is just one single heartbeat broken down into 5 steps. It all kicks off with phase 0, where a ton of sodium, Na+, rushes into the cell. That's the spark. Then, phases 1 through 3 are all about recovery, with potassium and calcium moving in and out, until the cell finally resets in phase 4. Every single one of these steps is a potential target for the drugs we're about to talk about.
And that whole process leads to the super important idea, the effective refractory period, or ERP. The easiest way to think about it is as the heart cell's mandatory recharge time. After it fires, it has to take a break. It absolutely cannot be stimulated again during this period. Now, why does this matter so much? Because a lot of these antiarrhythmic drugs work by making this recharge time longer, which helps prevent those chaotic, rapid-fire signals.
All right, now that we've got the electrical background down, let's meet the new conductors who are trying to get this orchestra back in order. The main way we group these drugs is using something called the Vaughan-Williams classification system.
This chart here is a fantastic cheat sheet. You've got the 4 main classes. See Class I? It goes after those sodium channels from phase 0 we just talked about. Class 2 are the beta blockers. Class 3 messes with the potassium channels to make that recharge time longer. And Class 4, well, they target the calcium channels. It's like having 4 different tools for 4 different ways to tackle the same problem.
Let's start by zooming in on that first group, because it's actually the most complex, the Class 1 sodium channel blockers. This class is so varied, it's actually broken down into 3 different subtypes. And you can really see the difference here. They all block sodium, but they do it with a different intensity. Class IA drugs kind of tap the brakes. Class IB drugs are a lot more subtle, and here's the cool part. They work best on unhealthy, damaged tissue, like you'd see after a heart attack. Then you have Class IC. These are the heavy hitters. They slam on the brakes and slow down that initial electrical signal in a big way.
So let's take a closer look at a key Class IB drug, lignocaine. You might also know it as lidocaine. This is an emergency room go-to, especially when a heart attack triggers a really dangerous ventricular arrhythmia. What makes it so useful is that it specifically goes after those unhealthy, overexcited cells while mostly leaving the healthy tissue alone.
And you might be wondering, why do they always give lignocaine through an IV? Why not just a pill? Well, it's because of something called first-pass metabolism. If you took it as a pill, your liver is so good at its job that it would break down almost all of it before it ever had a chance to reach your heart. It's a perfect example of how the way you deliver a drug is just as important as what the drug actually does.
All right, we're moving on from the sodium blockers. Let's check out the other key players in this orchestra. And we're going to start with one of the most powerful and most complicated drugs in the entire pharmacy. Everybody meet amiodarone. Now, officially, it's a Class 3 potassium channel blocker. But really, it's the Swiss Army knife of antiarrhythmics. It doesn't just do one thing. It also has little bits of Class 1, Class 2, and Class 4 action mixed in. This broad spectrum effect makes it incredibly powerful, but as you're about to see, that complexity comes at a price. And here's the price. The list of potential side effects is long. Because it acts on so many different parts of the body, and because it contains iodine, it can affect everything from your blood pressure and thyroid to your eyes and even your lungs, where it can cause a serious condition called pulmonary fibrosis. It's an amazing tool for sure, but one that needs to be watched very, very carefully.
Next up, we've got the Class 4 drugs. Their main job is to act like a bouncer at a very important electrical gate in the heart called the AV node. This node is the relay station between the heart's upper and lower chambers. By blocking calcium channels there, these drugs slow down any chaotic signals coming from the top, which is why they're so great for arrhythmias that start in those upper chambers. Now for something completely different. Let's talk about adenosine. This drug is in a class all by itself. It doesn't fit into the other four because it has one very specific, very dramatic job: to stop a super fast arrhythmia called PSVT. And it does this job with absolutely incredible speed.
How fast? Yeah, you're seeing that right. Its effects last for less than 1 minute. They push it through an IV really fast, and it basically hits the heart's reboot button. It's like a chemical Control-Alt-Delete. It just stops the arrhythmia cold, and then it's gone from the body almost instantly. It is truly remarkable stuff.
So we've seen how these drugs can be incredibly powerful tools for restoring the heart's rhythm. But this brings us to what is maybe the most critical point of this whole topic: the unbelievable, delicate balance between the benefit and the risk.
This right here, this quote captures the central paradox of everything he's been talking about. All antiarrhythmic drugs can also be pro-arrhythmic. What that means is the very same medicine you use to fix a bad rhythm can actually cause a new and sometimes worse one. When you start messing with the heart's fundamental electrical wiring, you are always walking a tightrope.
And that really leaves us with this final thought. When you think about this profound balancing act, matching the right drug to the right patient with the right arrhythmia, all while trying to navigate this minefield of potential side effects, it makes you wonder, is treating arrhythmias a precise science, or is it maybe more of a clinical art form? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.